was like pre-COVID or mid-COVID? 3 years ago?
Pre-COVID. 3, 2, 1. All right, take 2.
Welcome to the Dr. Zen podcast. Wait, I'll say that over.
I'm gonna go for it.
Jim, we're doing so good. Now you're
What happened?
up our feng shui.
Oh, cameraman.
Good. Do not mind me. Do not mind me.
I'm going to get a free
Once-
feng
once
shui
I'm done, we're
consult out of you. I know.
At Zen Essentials, our philosophy centers on inclusion and equality in our collective journey towards health and wellness. We invite our customers to embrace a skincare routine that goes beyond the surface, fostering a radiant connection between your skin and the nourishing elements we meticulously infuse into every product.
Zen Essentials, because your health is essential.
Ryan the Farmer, Part 12.
I'm your host, Dr. Alexis Hazen. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon who specializes in breast surgery and gender-affirming surgery and cosmetic surgery. I have a holistic approach to wellness and longevity. I've been practicing in New York City for over 20 years and continue to learn and educate as an associate professor at NYU Langone. Please join me in our mission to discover Zen. Andie SantoPietro. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
And I'm really honored to have you here. Andie is a beautiful human being, a spiritual soul, an author, social worker for 35 years, an energy counselor, and has written 3 amazing books, best-selling, I might add. And the most recent one is called The 5D Human, which we will get into. We're going to be talking actually a series of talks on this podcast on issues around gender and especially around transgender issues. And today we're going to start those talks off. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's going to be a broad talk and we're going to touch on a lot of things.
Not to talk about broads, right?
Yeah,
Right, okay.
right. We can do that
Yeah, okay.
also. And we are going to talk about things that may feel controversial to our listeners, and they may be triggering because gender issues are. So I want to put that out there. We also are both have trash mouths, so we may say some curse words. Would you agree? And I think that's offensive to some people, so I just want people to know that that might be a possibility. Because if I get animated, I sometimes do that, and then you go Italian. You go full Italian. So without further ado, why do we know each other? And then you're going to say, I don't know.
No, I do know.
Oh, okay.
I came to your office probably 3 years, could have been ago, and I was in the beginnings, the throes of my transitioning, and I was consulting with different doctors that did surgery, transgender surgery, and you came highly recommended. Every time I asked somebody, your name came up in the mix and set up an appointment, and then I came in to see you.
So you're a lot older than my typical patient. And how long had you been thinking about transitioning?
Not long.
Oh, really? Had you sort of struggled with gender issues in your life?
No.
So,
Actually, I didn't, and I think it's a great question because it's an obvious question to ask. But in my generation, when I came up, the big issue was coming out being gay.
yeah.
Gender wasn't even spoken of. So I didn't think of gender in particular as something that was part of my sexuality or my identity. So I think it was a sort of a generational thing. There were no gay rights when I was growing up. There was no legal marriage. There was, there's violence against gays now, but, that's when we were doing a lot in those years of Stonewall and breakthroughs and really advocating. Gender wasn't an issue. Gender is relatively a new concept. So to answer your question honestly, did I struggle with it? No, because it wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
In retrospect, was some of the issues I've had or things that I was conflicted about gender related? Absolutely. But I didn't have the language then because we weren't using that.
Right. I mean,
That term.
Right. Makes perfect sense. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of gender identity. But so then what happened? I mean, what was the catalyst that made you start seeking counseling in terms of these issues?
I was watching a television show, and a very famous person in the sort of Hollywood world was discussing being transgender, and I had an aha moment.
Really?
Yeah, I had to be 58.
Oh my God. Was that terrifying?
No, it was, in that moment, everything fell into place.
Wow. Who was the person?
It was Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And that was your only reference to transgender folks.
Not only reference to transgender folks, no. As a spiritual being, a therapist, politically, no. I wasn't a stranger being in the LGBTQ community,
Yeah.
no. But it was something registered in me that all those other things that either got pushed away or fell more into just me being more masculine as a gay woman, those things just evaporated, and I realized, oh, whoa. And then there was incredible amount of peace.
Really? I feel like that's an unusual story, because I feel like for so many people there's so much struggle and so much resistance rather than peace, which I think for a lot of people eventually peace comes, and that's probably the goal. I mean, having peace of mind, feeling safe, feeling in your body, expressing yourself how you want to express yourself. So why do you think that happened?
I think the peace was truth. I
see.
don't mean to imply I had a peaceful transition.
Yeah.
Those are two different things.
Right. Yep.
That moment, everything sort of dropped in. And I was like, oh, this, and all these other things that came to mind around my sexuality, around who I was as a sexual being, who I was in the world. That all just, the lens got completely crystal clear. The voice in my head was, oh, you're transgender. The first year after that, I wasn't tortured. I wasn't struggling. I confided in people I trusted. And in retrospect, that was easy because I technically wasn't starting any medical transitioning or even transitioning consciously. I was just coming into a part of me that finally dropped in and that I felt good about identifying. At that point, I didn't think or know, was I going to do any surgeries or go on hormones or come out in terms of letting the whole world know, that I'm transgender. None of that was on the radar till probably 60, 61.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, and that's that kind of transition story, that's not unusual in that it used to be so regimented. Transitioning used to be such a prescribed, medicalized sort of a series of decisions.
Yeah.
And you had to do X to get to Y to get to Z. And it started with hormones and then living in the opposite life. And so even the language that we talk about now is completely different from the language that we used even when I started doing this work as a surgeon. And now people's transitions take all different forms. And some people go on hormones, some people don't, some people have surgery. others don't. Some people just come out socially, and that's the end of the story, and maybe change their name or maybe not change their name. So I think that's one of the kind of beautiful things about it now, is that it isn't this prescribed, medicalized in all cases.
Correct.
And so for you, what did it look like, the process?
Well, I changed my first name 8 years ago, before this even took place.
Surprise.
Exactly. I'm not the typical, you know, I'm really out of the norm.
Kind of an outlier.
Yes, exactly.
Just saying.
And I changed my first name 8 years ago, and little by little, my professional world started calling me by Andie, and that was a name change. I never saw that as part of my transitioning. But again, one of those things that I was like aha-ing about, when I had that moment, it was like, oh boy, you know, I didn't do most things sequentially. I made a lot of incremental changes along the way, to the level that I was conscious of what was happening. But I think the big shift for me was spiritually.
We talked about this off camera a little bit before, and we both agree that that aspect of gender and transgender people, I mean, gender broadly, is really important. So can you speak a little bit about how that personally affected you, and then we can talk a little bit about like why we think it's so important and what that means.
Yeah, sure. My work, although my background, as you stated, I've been a psychospiritual therapist for the past 35 years, besides all the other work I do in the field of energy. But that being said, I am in a leadership role with consciousness and empowerment and the spiritual process. I'm helping a lot of people in their awakening process all over the world. So for me, I didn't hesitate medically transitioning. I was first frightened to do anything hormonally or medically because I felt older. I felt like it was a very big risk to start thinking surgery, you know, especially a surgery that I initially, my naivete, was calling elective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really a choice for me. Mm-hmm. You know, do I go on hormones at my age and start playing with my sensitive inner chemistry, which I had long before I transitioned? I didn't know how much of the boat I wanted to rock on a health level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, that's where my fear was. You know, what happens if, and there's no going back, you know, for me. You know, I knew once going forward. So little by little, I really relied on my spiritual understanding of life and truth and something greater than me to move me through what should I do. I didn't make these decisions. They weren't unilateral decisions. You know, I made it with the universe, with my higher self, my idea of God, goddess. And I knew that this was for me. Clearly, I'm going through this, but I also knew that it was going to be a very big part of my soul's work going forward and my professional work. How that would have, you know, sort of been created, or how it would have gotten directed at that point, clueless, totally. But I knew that there was something important in the integrity of giving that part of me a voice.
So many questions for you, so I'm sort of like running through them all. So what did the spiritual, almost guidance, or what did that look like? I mean, does it come in the form of prayer for you? Are you channeling something? Do you have a spiritual leader? Because I think a lot of people do feel connected to spirit somehow.
Yeah.
And they also, there's some language trouble about it, like what do you call that, or source, or mother, or God, or and then how do you connect, and how do you seek guidance from something so nebulous, you know?
My guidance is always a voice, and it's mine.
I love that. That's so great.
It's not like,
Yeah.
this angel that appears in front of me, or I, put a turban on with a, big fake emerald on the forehead, and,
I would like to see that, though.
Okay, I will drag out with that as my favorite charlatan. I will definitely.
Perfect.
All right, you got it.
Thanks. Thanks for that.
But that's not how the clarity, spirituality to me is getting in touch with the God within, and really arriving there is clearing out all the belief systems and limitations and all the things that scare the bejesus out of us for connecting to that God within. So I do what I've always done. I've listened, and I did not like what I heard.
What did you hear?
Move forward with this.
And that was
It scared
scary.
my human.
Yeah.
It scared my human. I was thinking, hey, it's me.
Yeah.
I can do this. Yeah. I can be transgender. I can be whatever I want to be. I don't have to do it, surgery or hormone. I don't need that. And when I started peeling back the layers and looking under the hood a little bit, those decisions were really not decisions. They weren't choices. They were a place my thinking went to avoid fear and uncomfortability and change.
Of course. I mean,
I did I'm very astute at avoiding, these things. I'm very good at being gratuitous with my feelings and beliefs. But the peeling back and coming face to face with that I wanted more of that identity. I wanted to embody that identity. And I think over the years I found myself saying, at this point in my life, you might hear me say this, and it's not fatalistic, it's not negative. I'm very realistic. Maybe I got another 25 years here, maybe 30, maybe.
Okay.
Who cares?
So there's some finite time.
There's a finite time.
Right. I agree with
I
that.
want to make it count.
Yeah.
I want to live my life on my own terms. I want to really use these next 25, 30 years. And like the last thing I want to say on my way out is I really did everything I wanted to do to make myself happy and to self-actualize through even the changes that are down to the studs. I just want to live my truth. It's not for anyone else. And that, for me, keeps me in integrity. And my integrity keeps me dealing with the fear of my humanness that deals with fear a lot.
You said that beautifully. And I think you've really tapped into the spiritual universe and world, and it's obviously helped you, and you help other people with that. And one thing we were talking about with a lot of young people and a lot of the world right now is there is a lack of connection to spirituality. And I sort of wonder why do you think that is? Because if you look in all civilizations, there always is a connection to spirituality, and there are a lot of different ways you talk about it. I mean, you can name that. So what's going on, do you think?
I think that we, as a collective, have confused religion and spirituality. I don't think it's complicated. I think there's a place for religion. I respect it. And I think that religion versus spirituality reflects consciousness. And spirituality versus religion basically eliminates the middleman. You know, that's it.
Totally. I just snorted. No, that's brilliant.
You know,
yeah,
that's all it
100%.
does. You know, it's like the most powerful, wireless connection. It eliminates the middleman, and religion has a few more levels, gradations between God and you. It's in Catholicism, it might be the Ten Commandments or the church or priests or nuns, or you're still a little bit removed from the big kahuna. You know, the big cheese is not like, you're not going out, and breaking bread with the big cheese. You got to go through all these other. And in spirituality, you own that this is a direct line. And I think that we went through stages, and the first stage throughout time is religion. And I think religion has a very important place for those who need their rules set by outside authority.
That completely true, and in every civilization that exists.
Exactly. There's no judgment on that.
Nope.
And that's not me saying it condescendingly. Until we figure out this direct connection and we really trust it, we turn our power over as humans to a lot of things. Religion, anything that has an outside authority, we've been turning our power over to. You have to move through a certain level of really owning the ride, for better or for worse, the more you connect to spirituality, because your life starts changing profoundly on this planet when you run out of people to blame.
I love that. Yeah,
it's true.
No,
it's
it
like
is true.
you run you know what? Of all the things that have evolved for me, and I am far from the top of the summit, the thing I miss the most is blaming people. I grieve over that. I grieve over not being able to or I'll do the blame. I still do it, but I get to the part sooner that I know it's just a bunch of nonsense. We blame the government, we blame religion, we blame our families. Look, are people accountable for really, really mindlessness and egregious behavior? How humans treat other humans on this planet is horrific. It's horrific.
I agreed.
Animals, wild animals untamed do not treat themselves and their species the same way. We humiliate, we abuse, we deny, we shame, we embarrass, we belittle. For me,
Sounds like my family life.
Yeah, it sounds like dinner at my sister's house a couple of weeks ago. God, I love them.
Oh, yeah.
Family dinners. Family's like,
never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
You got them all. You hit all the marks.
Check.
Shame.
Yep. I like shame in particular myself.
Yeah, me too. That's a good one.
I miss those things. I miss those things.
You could probably get them back.
I do. Trust me. I haven't given them up. I keep them so close. But I
you can
know
always bring them
least,
back into your life.
I'm conscious enough to know that those are really, those are things that slow me down. And my objective, not everybody's objective, just my truth, is I'm here to grow. I'm here to evolve. I'm here to become more of the God that I'm capable of being. And that are my actions congruent with that objective. And that's it. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, they're not. But I know the question to ask, and I look really evolved when I say that.
That makes me feel a lot better. I'm starting to feel really bad about myself. There are a lot of different ways we could go with this conversation, and I could talk to you for 10 million hours. But I want to go back to gender roles and really sort of generically, sort of typical female and male roles. And there seems to be a lot of trouble right now with those roles, and we're trying to sort of put people into certain roles, and I think there's a lot of discomfort everywhere, and it doesn't seem like anybody's particularly psyched to be whatever their category they're supposed to be in. And I thought we could just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I want to go back to spirituality.
Well, it's all tied in.
Yeah.
You know, because gender, it's such a... gender, it's very important because we don't, you know... It's a complicated issue right now because we are up against our cutting edge of bigger picture change. And this kind of sort of uprising around the conflicts around gender is what happens before everything shifts. But going through the shadow of it is a nightmare. So we forget that gender is only a byproduct of being in the human body. The soul is genderless. You don't have a gender before you come into this spacesuit, and you don't have a gender after you leave. It's only part of the construct of being human. It's one of the things that have identified ourselves. The more you spiritually evolve, whatever that means, the more you understand that, and the less onus and importance is put on who's doing what, and God wanted you to be this way. God's like, listen, kids, you bunch of losers on earth. Oy vey, you kids down there. Stop fighting over the gender thing. It was your idea, not mine. You know?
Yeah.
She has nothing to do with that because there is no gender. We're just elements of love and light. And we are compressed in this body. And when you allow the humanness, not the experience, it's an amazing gift to be a human. And it's even more amazing to be alive right now.
Really? Seems like things are kind of bad.
It's just starting to get good.
Really? How much longer do we have to wait? I mean,
We won't see
seriously.
it.
Seriously. It seems that these are rough times. And the gender issues, people, it's so polarizing for people. But as are so many issues right now, everything feels so polarizing.
It's polarizing.
And we talked about this a little bit. I kind of didn't even want to talk about this because of how polarizing it can be, and that people would be upset about everything and anything that was said because the language keeps changing. People's feelings are very intense about things, and it's easy to offend somebody somehow. So, but you had a good thing to say. You said things were getting better. So
things are getting. I didn't necessarily feel they're getting better, but I think that we are moving towards a bigger understanding, and we are in polarity. You know, polarity's been exalted right now because people are spiritually evolving. When you spiritually evolve, emotionally evolve, you're growing. And when you're growing, you know what happens? You realize you have real choice.
yeah.
So this conflict that we're seeing on Earth, and it sucks how people are being treated. We're not giving anybody a hall pass for bad behavior, bad politics, just downright meanness, unkindness. No. What I'm saying is what happens that we tend to forget, and why spirituality is so important with gender, is that we are love and we are light. And guess what love does? You're never going to believe what love does.
Don't know. Enlighten me.
Love brings up everything unlike itself. We couldn't have this kind of discourse on the planet if we didn't have the love pushing up the shadow of belief systems that no longer serve an evolving society and world.
And why do you think it's evolving? I mean, what factors do you see? I mean, is it the polarity that indicates that we're evolving? Because some people would argue that we're devolving.
It depends on if you're looking at the mundane of it. And in the mundane, the pole vaulter jumps back a little bit before he goes over. Yeah, is there a backtrack? We're going back to pick up those cells left in the Petri dish around this before they grow again. Yeah. Is it ugly out there? Yeah. As a doctor, the analogy I use with your presence here is you have an infection, Yeah, you gotta
clean things up.
You gotta clean things up.
Yeah,
we're infected. We're infected on a very deep level. So what do? Keep the infection under wraps and let it seethe, or do we, cut the boil? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, obviously.
We cut the boil.
Yeah,
and you looking at the pus and the blood and the scar, and in that moment, it's horrific. And you're not going to spiritualize that reality. But there's an objective. It's so that person could really heal that wound. So we are in the pussy, bloody, scarry part. And it's not pretty. But that doesn't mean we're devolving. And that's why spirituality right now is so important, because it's not about praying this away. Not that I'm against prayer. But it's about being able to go to the bigger picture, that we are going somewhere with this. We're not just going backwards.
There's your friend.
Hi, love.
She agrees.
I'm having sex with the dog on camera.
It's fine.
Okay. Thank you. So that's where we're going. That's why spirituality is going to be key for us right now, because without it, we don't have a bigger picture. We are being sort of seduced and controlled by the fear of looking at the infection ooze. And we think that's the final snapshot. But you as a doctor, you know procedure, sequencing. So if I said to you, oh my God, I'm dying, my infection is oozing, you'd be like, I got this. Listen, kid, I got this. This is what's supposed to. You're not going to get crazy when you see some pus.
No.
Okay, because you have that bigger picture of where it goes.
Right.
Spirituality is what's needed and what's important now, because we are going somewhere.
So strange combination of so highly evolved and so base. I just don't even get it.
Thank you.
Right?
I appreciate that.
That's true.
That's why I work with a lot of people, because they're like you, they're not put off.
Yeah.
It's not this spirituality.
Yeah.
It's like I get in there.
And you're like,
I hopefully I'm real, because I am.
Yeah.
Like you.
Very.
You're a unicorn.
I'm a what? You're a unicorn.
No, you're a unicorn. No, you.